Drama doesn't appear out of thin air. There are moments in life when everything feels unnecessarily complicated. One day, it's a misunderstanding with a friend. The next day, someone is gossiping behind your back, or you find yourself entangled in situations that you didn't ask for. Things that feel messy, draining, and confusing. And you pause and ask yourself, why does this keep happening to me? It's a fair question. But the truth is, drama isn't always something others bring into our lives. Sometimes, unintentionally, it stems from the way we respond, how we communicate, and the kind of energy we allow into our space. As adults, our lives are full of moving parts, relationships, responsibilities, personal growth, and emotions we're still learning how to process. When we carry unresolved feelings, lack boundaries, or seek validation in the wrong places, it becomes easier for us to get swept into chaos. Sometimes we react too quickly, speak before understanding the full picture, or absorb others' emotions without filtering them. Over time, this creates a pattern where drama finds a way to circle back. It's also worth asking, do we unknowingly participate in the drama we claim to dislike? Even small habits like venting to the wrong person, leaving things unsaid, or seeking attention through complaints can contribute to the tension. And when we do this often enough, it creates an environment where conflict thrives. This isn't about blaming ourselves either. It's about becoming more aware. Life will always come with challenges, but we have the power to choose how we engage with them. When we stop feeding drama with attention, defensiveness, or reactivity, it slowly loses its grip. So maybe the real question isn't, why is there always drama? But rather, what part of me still feels drawn to it? That's where the real change begins. Common reasons why drama shows up in our lives. We often think of drama as something that happens to us, something external, caused by others, situations we somehow end up in. But if we take a step back and reflect with honesty, we might begin to see that drama doesn't just walk into our lives by accident. Sometimes it's the subtle signals we send out, the way we react, or the boundaries we forget to set that quietly open the door for it to enter. Let's look at some of the most common, yet often overlooked, reasons why drama tends to follow us, not to judge ourselves, but to better understand how we can reclaim peace in our daily lives. 1. We're unaware of the signals we send out. We often underestimate how our energy affects others. A sarcastic joke, a blunt remark, or even a passing glance can be interpreted very differently depending on who's receiving it. What we see as harmless humor, others might feel as ridicule. What we consider honesty, someone else might perceive as judgment. And when miscommunication happens, which often does, emotions rise, stories form, and drama quietly brews in the background. Sometimes we say things just to keep it real, but raw honesty without sensitivity can become a weapon rather than a bridge. It's not about walking on eggshells or losing ourselves in people-pleasing. It's about cultivating self-awareness. How are our words landing? How is our energy being received? Being intentional with the energy we bring into conversations is the first quiet act of emotional maturity. The goal isn't to silence ourselves, but to express truth with compassion. The ability to pause and ask, is what I'm about to say kind, necessary, and constructive? Can prevent a mountain of misunderstandings later on. What you say flows from what is in your heart. That old saying reminds us that our inner state often leaks through, even when we think we're hiding it. Awareness is the first filter that keeps unnecessary conflict from growing. 2. We react too quickly instead of responding calmly. In a world that moves fast, we've forgotten the power of the pause. Someone says something that hurts us, and before we've even processed the feeling, we're already reacting, defensive, angry, ready to snap back. But drama rarely begins with the actual situation. It begins with how we respond to it. We forget that responding and reacting are not the same. Reacting is automatic. It's emotional, impulsive, and often rooted in old wounds. Responding requires space, reflection, and emotional regulation. It's what happens when we allow ourselves a breath before the words leave our mouths. One of the most underrated tools for staying out of drama is the simple choice to wait. To sit with discomfort without immediately projecting it. To ask ourselves, is this about them or is it also touching something in me? That moment of quiet self-inquiry can save us from many storms we don't need to walk into. It doesn't mean becoming passive or avoiding confrontation. It means being deliberate in when and how we engage. Emotional maturity looks like knowing which battles are worth fighting and which ones only drain us without resolution. 3, we have a deep urge to divide everything into right and wrong. Many of us were raised to value truth, directness, and fairness, and that's not a bad thing. But when these values turn rigid, they can push us into black and white thinking. We want clarity, resolution, and closure. We want to know who's right and who's wrong, even when no one asks for our verdict. Sometimes in the pursuit of truth, we speak too soon. We interrupt, correct, or give unsolicited opinions. And while we may feel justified, others may feel judged, cornered, or attacked. The more we insist on truth in moments that call for patience or softness, the more we find ourselves in conflict even with people we care about. There's a difference between being honest and being harsh. The former builds trust, the latter breaks it. There's a quiet wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, in understanding that not every situation needs to be dissected for clarity, and not every disagreement needs a resolution. Sometimes choosing peace over being right is not weakness, it's strength. It's emotional discipline, and that's a form of power many of us are still learning to hold. 4, we haven't established clear boundaries with others. One of the most common reasons drama enters our lives is because we haven't made it clear where we begin and others end. We say yes when we mean no. We try to keep everyone happy, even when it costs us peace. We involve ourselves in situations out of guilt, obligation, or fear of disappointing others, and in doing so, we silently open the door to stress and resentment. When we don't have boundaries, we're more likely to be pulled into problems that aren't ours. We take on emotional labor, fix other people's issues, or say yes to social situations that drain us, and then wonder why we're always exhausted or caught in other people's mess. Drama often finds those who haven't learned to draw the line. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They help us decide what we allow in and what we keep out. They're how we teach others how to treat us. And the most important boundary, the one we set with ourselves, the promise to no longer betray our own needs just to keep someone else comfortable. Learning to say no without guilt is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about knowing that your peace matters too, and protecting it is not selfish. It's responsible. Drama doesn't always start outside of us. Sometimes it begins in the silent ways we communicate, the patterns we've never questioned, and the habits we've carried for too long. Becoming aware of these patterns doesn't mean we're to blame for every messy situation. It means we're brave enough to look at our own role and willing enough to make different choices. We all get pulled into chaos sometimes, but with self-awareness, emotional discipline, and clear boundaries, we can start stepping out of it one conscious decision at a time. And the most empowering part, peace is something we can choose to create even in a world that's constantly trying to pull us into noise. 2, a positive perspective. How to reclaim peace in a world full of noise. Drama doesn't knock on our door without invitation. In many cases, it's not something we consciously choose, but something we subconsciously allow. The good news is that just as we may have unknowingly attracted it, we can just as consciously choose to release it. Not by avoiding people, becoming emotionally numb, or suppressing conflict, but by cultivating a stronger inner world and more mindful outer habits. In a world that often rewards overreaction and noise, peace becomes a quiet form of rebellion, one that begins inside. Let's explore 3 grounded, empowering ways to step out of the cycle of unnecessary drama from a place of self-leadership, not blame. 1, building inner strength, the foundation of peace. Drama doesn't always find us because we seek it. Sometimes it finds us because we haven't yet built a strong enough wall to keep it out. And often that wall isn't made of distance or defiance, it's made of self-clarity. People who are overly attuned to how others perceive them, the sensitive souls, the deeply empathetic often find themselves the most affected by unnecessary conflict. Not because they're weak, but because they feel deeply. But sensitivity without grounding can be a dangerous thing. Like a sponge in a storm, you absorb everything: opinions, projections, rumors, glances. You start to interpret silence as rejection, disagreement as dislike, and criticism as confirmation that something is wrong with you. When we don't truly know who we are or what matters to us, we become vulnerable to everything. A look, a comment, or even the absence of affirmation can feel like an attack. But once you take the time to root yourself not in titles, relationships, or fleeting validation, but in values, something changes. You start to anchor in the truth of who you are. Your boundaries become clear, your self-talk becomes kind, and your reaction to drama, it softens, it slows. Strong roots produce calm trees. That saying becomes a lifestyle. Because once you're solid in who you are, people's opinions start to feel like background noise instead of thunder. You don't have to respond to everything because not everything is a threat to your identity. You don't have to win every conversation because your worth is not on the line. The deeper you go within, the less swayed you are by this surface level chaos. True peace isn't found in isolation from others, it's found in alignment within yourself. And the more you practice inner clarity, the more your energy becomes a space where drama simply doesn't know how to survive. 2, choosing to observe instead of react. We live in a world that values quickness, quick opinions, quick responses, quick judgment, but wisdom requires slowness. It asks us to take a breath, create space, and see things from a wider lens before we jump into the fray. Most drama does not arise from the events themselves, but from how people react to those events. A misunderstanding becomes a fight. A disagreement becomes a war. All because no one paused long enough to reflect. There's a powerful alternative: observation. Not detachment, not apathy, but mindful presence. The ability to take one emotional step back and ask yourself, does this actually impact my core values? Or if I respond right now, am I bringing clarity or just more noise? You don't need to involve yourself in every conversation. You don't need to clarify every rumor, defend every decision, or correct every wrong impression. Sometimes the most powerful response is stillness. Let the storm pass. Let people believe what they need to. The truth always has a way of surfacing. Learning to observe gives you control over your energy. It means you get to choose where your emotional attention goes and where it doesn't. And that is one of the most underrated forms of personal power. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Choosing to stay grounded rather than reactive isn't about being passive. It's about preserving your peace for the places that truly deserve it. 3, keeping relationships clean and kind. One of the most effective yet often overlooked ways to stay clear of drama is to be a safe person. A person who others can trust not to twist stories, break confidences, or stir negativity behind closed doors. It starts with the smallest of choices, not speaking poorly about someone who isn't in the room, not spreading unverified stories just to feel included in a conversation, not using someone else's vulnerability as a form of entertainment. These might seem like small, harmless acts, but over time, they define your character. The cleaner your communication is, the more peace you invite into your life. People who avoid drama aren't necessarily quiet or disengaged. They simply choose not to be a part of anything built on betrayal, bitterness, or performance. They choose integrity over attention, clarity over confusion. When your words are consistent, when your tone is respectful even in disagreement, and when your presence doesn't come with emotional strings, attached people begin to trust you. And trust has a silent ripple effect. It repels chaos. It tells others, I'm not the one to get involved in games or gossip. And slowly you find that fewer storms come your way. Be the person you needed when things were messy. Clean relationships don't mean perfect relationships. They mean ones rooted in clarity, kindness, and respect even when things get hard. And those kinds of connections are not only drama-free, they're deeply nourishing. In closing, there is something liberating about realizing that peace is not something the world gives you, it's something you build choice by choice. You build it by knowing who you are and not letting every external voice define you. You build it by learning to observe instead of reacting to every trigger. You build it by keeping your words, your presence, and your relationships clean. Drama might still knock on your door, but with inner strength, mindful awareness, and clear values, you no longer feel compelled to answer. And over time, peace becomes not just a state, but a lifestyle. One that you protect not through isolation or avoidance, but through grounded intention and thoughtful presence. In a world that often mistakes chaos for connection, choosing peace is the real revolution. And it starts with the quiet decision to no longer participate in what doesn't feel true to your soul. Shining without the need to clash. There comes a point in adulthood where we realize the world will keep spinning with or without our reaction to it. People will talk. Misunderstandings will happen. Emotions will run high. And yet, amidst all that noise, we still get to choose how we carry ourselves. We don't always get to choose the situation, but we always get to choose our presence. Drama thrives in environments where reactions are instant and emotions are unchecked. It lingers where people feel the need to always prove, defend, or explain themselves. But when we stop needing to win the narrative, something shifts. We reclaim our peace. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Not every tension requires your response. Not every misunderstanding deserves a correction. Sometimes the most powerful form of clarity is quiet, not silence from fear, but stillness from self-assurance. In many cases, the conflict is less about what happened and more about how we respond to what happened. When we operate from a reactive place, we often say things we don't fully mean, commit to battles we don't truly value, or carry stories that were never ours to begin with. But when we pause, reflect, and choose our words with intention, we not only protect our energy, we protect our dignity. Being graceful doesn't mean being passive. It means being anchored. It means knowing what matters enough to fight for and what's simply not worth your inner peace. It means understanding that not every disagreement requires closure, and not every criticism needs a counter-argument. Some things are best left to silence, not because you're weak, but because your peace is strong. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. And one of the most transformative things you can do is create an environment where respect isn't demanded with force, it's offered naturally, because you model it. Shining in a world of noise means grounding yourself in values, not performance. It's being able to walk into a room without needing validation and walk out without taking unnecessary emotional baggage with you. You become someone who radiates consistency, someone who isn't easily swayed by gossip, pressure, or emotional games. Your energy is a currency. Spend it where it builds something real. Spend it where you're heard, not just tolerated. Spend it on things that align with who you're becoming, not who you're trying to convince others you are. And when you do that, when you learn to show up with clarity, speak from self-awareness, and protect your boundaries without apology, drama starts to lose its grip. The invitations to chaos may still arrive, but they no longer feel personal. They no longer have power over you. To shine is not to stand in a spotlight. It's to walk through the day with intention, speak with kindness, and act with integrity. It's to know your worth so deeply that you no longer seek it in other people's opinions. It's to stay calm in the storm, not because the storm isn't real, but because you've stopped letting it define you. So no, you don't need to engage in every battle. You don't need to clear your name every time. You just need to live in a way that, over time, speaks for itself. Let others spin their stories. Let the noise swirl around. You hold steady, because true light doesn't flicker for attention. It stays lit to show the way. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.